Hello, I'm Andre Loy. I'm the International Director of Regeneration International, and I'd like to welcome you to what I believe is one of the really important events this year is the World Organic Forum. And I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine, Professor Dr. Franz-Theo Gottwald. And he runs the Academy Schloss Kirchberg, which for me is probably one of the best education institutions I've ever been to. It's an old castle set in just this wonderful rural village in Germany. They held the World Organic Forum there, and the accommodation there was great. All the food was organic. You couldn't get a better venue and a better, how can you say, event. But I'd just like to start, because both of us are educators and work in education, and just for you to talk about the academy and the importance of education.
Great. Thanks for inviting me, Andre. Indeed, the Academy Schloss Kirchberg is dedicated to educating farmers. It's an academy run by 1,500 farmers. Around 1,000 of them are still in conventional agriculture, and 500 are on organic farming, certified organic farming, to the working together with the certifier Ecoland and other certifiers, all around the area. In a way, we can talk about this as a farmers academy for bringing the bioregion where they all work in to a more resilient and future fit type of agriculture. And this obviously is a process of development and bringing new knowledge from agroecology, from regenerative aspects to the farmers to improve their ways of cropping and pig farming and dairy, etc. So education is indeed the core focus here. Since we run this World Organic Forum, we bring in all knowledge from all across the world in agroecology, regenerative aspects, and try to inspire amongst these different approaches and bring the best off, so to speak, afterwards to our farmers.
Yeah, I really like your approach that it's there for all farmers. And the whole idea of education is to empower farmers with knowledge on how to change this. Because what I found working with farmers is the fear of the unknown. You know, farmers are necessarily conservative because if you do something wrong, you have crop failure and you lose your year's income. So they want to stick to what they know, and the step outside of that for them is very dangerous. So having education to help them take that step, I think, is so important. So what I'm very interested in is this progress, the 1,000 farmers out of the 1,500, the 1,000 that aren't organic. Do you see a change towards more organic practices with them?
We do see a gradual change to more regenerative, nature positive change. Indeed, farming is highly conventionalized business, and farmers try to stick to their conventional, habitual ways of doing the things, and then they are advised by input companies or the financial industry what to do and where to invest. We do know all these pillars of the old paradigm. But the main thing for us in the academy is to allow them to experience that there are models and different paths to more sustainable ways of agriculture, or bringing a food system into life. Talking about food systems, as we are aware, is a different paradigm altogether, including the ecosystematic part in it. As I said in the first statement, our basic concept in the academy is that we open up the awareness of the farmers to the landscape and the bioregional in terms of a more technical concept, and allow them to understand the economy of what we call an ecology of short distances, because this is in the core of our perspectives on future fit agriculture in the southern parts of Germany. Make use of the ecology of short distances and close the loops in terms of a cyclic process, since this is still quite new to most of the farmers in southern parts of Germany, we really have to educate and get the economy sorted out behind that. What ASSIST does is that we now put in place some measures on CO2 equivalents, and talk a lot about climate-friendly agriculture and building up humus, and bringing payment schemes for these changes. So let's be real. It's not only about bringing in new ideas from a shifting paradigm towards more regenerative agriculture across the globe. It's also the economy behind that thing, and allowing the farmers to understand that ecology of short distances is the main issue for, or the key to a sustainable economy. This is the crucial thing we work on.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the way you did it at the World Organic Forum, that everything we ate and drank was local. And to me, that was fantastic. And, and there was no shortage of food, no shortage of types of food. It was a wonderful expression of, local economies, local ecologies. The other thing I think was, to me, is really important, you talk about, is getting this shift in farmers. When we formed Regeneration International and put out the idea of regenerative agriculture, we did it because we need to see a change in industrial agriculture, and most farmers are not happy with where they're going with agriculture. You can see it with all the massive demonstrations in Europe, for instance. Farmers out in their tractors are very unhappy. Everybody knows that agriculture must change. We found that, if we said, oh, look, go organic, we'd lose them. But if we said, oh, we need to regenerate agriculture, that's neutral. And most farmers get that, and they go, yes, we do need to regenerate it. And what we're seeing globally is this movement now towards more nature positive, more ecological around the world. And, for me, this is what I saw at the World Organic Forum. I thought it was a very good event that way, that there were a whole range of farmers, not just organic farmers, but all there discussing how we can work together.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the focus areas where we come together are climate protection on the one hand, and on the other hand, working on biodiversity issues. In practically terms, the biodiversity issues we cover by allowing experiences and paying for that for beetle banks, for example, for integrating different cover crops into a cyclic model of what I call the ecology of short distances, and the climate aspects. As I said, we address by paying for building up humus, for example, and this is what conventional farmers really do understand. They do have biogas appliances, and they gradually come up with what we also call a multifunctional type of agriculture, so that they have different sources of income and can adapt more quickly to the changes in the market. I notice that I talk a lot about the economy in that here, but since the investments are so high in the machinery and in keeping up the buildings in southern Germany, if we don't come up with a sound business case, so to speak, addressing biodiversity, addressing other methods of regenerative agriculture, addressing that farms can become a CO2 sink and not a producer, then we don't win the conventionals. They really want a system which works, and the change they make in terms of their farms are towards system thinking, and I really appreciate that, are towards closing the loops in terms of input and output, are and that's a major shift, coming back to work together with local butchers and so forth, bakers, and producing whatever fits for these next step in terms of processing food. And that's where the Academy also assists in creating platforms for exchange between the producers and the next steps, or the producers and whoever could deliver what type of organic input. This is part of an investment. Farmers are not educated to do that on their own, to build up some such platforms for dealing in a regional scope with whatever they can work on in their stables or their fields, create more specific regional trademarks also, so that the customers really can rely on what they get as regional foods. What I notice is that the next generation now coming into taking over the farms is really already quite educated in these cornerstones of a new paradigm. and of course they know that they can just follow the ritualized passes of their fathers or even forefathers, and have to uh, come up with what I like to call the ecology of communication amongst farmers, and organize themselves in different and new and appropriate and data-based ways. I'm noticing, since I'm not personally working only in the south of Germany, but in all parts of Germany with different types of farms, running roundtables for more nature positive solutions, addressing the climate issues consumers now have in mind with dairy products, for example, and also with meat products. This is very tricky now for both production lines, conventional as well as organic. And as we know, also for regenerative agriculture, it would be more advisable to include animals in the system. Of course, not this industrialized farming and feedlot stuff, but in terms of nutrient cycling and so on, we depend on integrating animals, farmed animals here. So there's a lot of practical learnings to do, and try to figure out what type of practice fits to what type of farmer. Not farm. The farmer is and his family the problem. So, talking about the ecology of communication, we address all the social issues and the social economical issues behind new types of farms, and taking the whole family into this shift is even more needed nowadays than before. It's all based on dialogue and arguments, and not this patriarchal type. We in a way we notice young farmers being decolonized in a decolonized mind state, so to speak, and and but this is really a good assistance to what we are all up for on this globe now as a community. That's why we talk about the World Organic Forum. It's a global community building with different approaches, be it from zero input level like in India, be it for more scientific, elaborate level, talking about regenerating soils, etc., in the European or North American, Canadian approaches, talking about the organic approaches, which we are very much market driven by the big trade chains. So we all have, like I said, three focus area. Learn to work with a landscape, the bioregional thing. Learn to really work on biodiversity and creating resilient systems along these ecology of short distances, and learn to be more climate friendly, so to speak, at this time of the movements coming up, and be more creative to make this change you are addressing, Andrew, from conformity to a type of ritualized old culture of agriculture to a new culture of agriculture with new habits empowered by new knowledge and by exchange between farmers.
Yeah, look, what you've talked about is very important, having this diversity and diversity of choices. But the
Hmm.
critical one that you started with, which for me as a farmer, I've been farming now for more than 50 years, and I've worked with farmers on every continent. The economics is the key. We see farmers going, they're leaving farming because of debt. Like I said, a huge amount of money they need for machinery, for the buildings and all that. They borrow that. And
Hmm.
in many cases, the prices they're getting have hardly changed. And
Hmm.
farmers are in serious economic trouble. And as a result, we're losing actually globally millions of farmers a year. Just where I am, for instance, about half the farmers, because our local sugar mill closed, a lot of the farmers are now going to be leaving farming, selling their land. Um, and this is the story around the world. In Europe, for instance, that we've all seen the massive demonstrations because farmers are struggling. And the key is economics and giving them a viable solution. Without economics, without income, there is no farming. And I think that's one of our strengths, or what you talked about, is showing there are multiple ways forward, not just one, and getting them to rethink their farms and rethink how they can reduce costs, for instance, spending a fortune on fertilizers, pesticides, new markets, value-added markets, um, maybe for some going organic, getting a premium on, these are all incentives. And to me, I find that is sometimes the strongest, you know, how can you say, making the farm economically viable is the strongest incentive for change.
Definitely, and that's why we also engage with the Academy in political discourses, so that along the line of public money for public or common goods should be the main driver for um, bringing tax money to the farms. So for biodiversity means which protect the water, for means which protect the soil. Public money should be invested, and in the next period of the common agricultural policy frame in Europe, this will become even more important. This is part of the income and has to be part of the income, ideally on a global scale, since each and every government knows that without vivid and viable farms in the country falls short, and and people will even be again and again moving to the cities. This migration things we all have with the huge rural areas in South America, for example, or in parts of Southeast Asia. So allowing a nation to have vivid rural areas, also in terms of culture, education, health system, and all that, needs to bring money from the cities, not only for the products, but for creating public goods to the farms. This is part of the incomes and has to be addressed again and again. Beside the market schemes for CO2 equivalents, for example, to pay for that, which is also another part of income generation. And as we notice in the northern part, and as well as in China, addressing the energy production in small-scale energy production, photovoltaic in the country, and so forth, biogas wherever it's possible, not on an industrialized level, but on a systemic smallholder level, that each and everybody can address that, because having small biogas appliances is covering the regional energy demand better than one big thing, with all the grid problems and all that stuff, as we all are aware. So investing here, we do have good examples of involving citizens as investors, or people living in villages, and doing a small scale heat and electricity net, fostered by raw materials from, or rest materials from, the farms. These small scale systemic solutions thought in networks within networks. This is the mind shift here. Networks and networks. This is on a quite good way. Sure, the lowering the input and the input costs are essential, and what really troubles me in this respect is how this big trend of digitalization will bring a new shift to the whole future food systems, or future agricultural and food systems. We are all aware that collecting data, processing data, and all that is quite expensive at the beginning in the investment phase. And if these investments and the costs are then put to the farmers, we'll have the next wave of giving up. So this is a history of technology in agriculture. Each major frog leap created a completely new structure. And of course, we are aware that these industries producing digitalized solutions are all preparing for future business models here as well. And this is a major threat, to my understanding, to really regenerative agriculture. It's not that BASF, Syngenta, and all the others now call their approaches regenerative. We know this is a part of greenwashing. That's the easy part to be addressed. But the solutions, parts of Monsanto and others have, and major insurance companies and so forth, for data-driven agriculture, this really puts more trouble into my mind. And also the political frame. Some of our politicians, at least in Germany, now say the future will be like, either you have a sound database on your farm, or you lose your license to do farming. It's easily to create a law or a set of laws around all that, and you know what I mean. So we have to be aware about that, and we address at the Academy all these political issues as well during our World Organic Farms conventions, because this is a global trend, and there's no reason for Amazon not to consider agriculture to be part of their future business. You know what I mean?
Look, what you're talking about is, excuse me, what you're talking
Okay.
about, actually, the critical dichotomy, all these technologies are designed for one thing and one thing only, and that is to suck money out of farmers. So
Mhm.
these corporations are the biggest corporations. You know, we've had farming for 10,000 years without digitalization, and we don't
Mhm.
what they're proposing we don't need, On the other hand, we can use this. Most farmers can, and it's to our benefit. And so it's the issue of scale. And you talked about small scale, where
Mhm.
we can keep, things like microgrids instead of
Mhm.
large, covering the landscape with solar panels. Everywhere you go, on every hillside now is industrialized with wind turbines, huge
Mhm.
power lines going through the landscape and just ruining our rural landscapes, industrializing it for power for the cities. Um,
Mhm.
and you know, everything is involved. When we look at the cost of machinery, farmers go into debt for that, and but the machinery companies are multi-billion dollar companies. The same with the fertilizers, the pesticides, the banks, the insurance
Mhm.
companies. It's all designed to suck money out. Whereas what you're talking about, which to me is really important, small scale, local marketing, we empower farmers. We actually have farmers in control. They can make the decisions. They can, be in control of their markets, negotiate the prices, get fair prices. And, this is the real difference. And
Mhm.
for me, um, I just want to say that this part of what you're doing is just so important for the survival of families and family farming.
Mhm. Mhm. And addressing the involvement of the consumers, making them prosumers, since we are talking about a people's food summit. Yes, this build the bridges between villages, small cities, even big cities or metropole areas, between food production, food processing, and food consumption. And building these bridges is so necessary, creating awareness, creating new alliances between consumers and farmers, so that there's enough political will behind creating political frameworks, legal frameworks fitting for nature positive solutions, regenerative solutions. And in the end, as both of us, Andrew, are aware, it's type of power play, and it's still open who wins. So each and every move for a people's driven agroecological, regenerative, organic type of food system is helpful here. So I really appreciate what you're doing with your work in the regenerative movement, and we, as you, uh, we really were happy to for having you at the academy and working together on these lines.
And look, I want to say exactly the same with what you're doing. I think it's so important. And we are actually on the right side of history. The reason why we're winning is we're growing farmers. So if you talk about the organic sector, in the last 10 years, we grew amount of farmers. We grew by 147% in farmers.
Amazing, yeah.
On the other
Mhm.
hand, the industrial sector continues to lose millions of farmers every year. So the fact is, their model is causing farmers to fail. Our
Mhm.
model is growing farmers. You know,
Mhm.
it looks tough,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
fact is,
Mhm.
we are winning. And I just want to say, you're part of, there's a lot of us around the world. You're
Mhm.
part of this trend to empower farmers, to like you said, bring in the new generation of farmers. So I just want to say thank you so much. And I really look forward to us
Mhm.
continuing to work together because,
Yeah.
as I said, we are on the right side of history.
Yeah, so let's grow farmers together. Fine.
Okay, ciao. Tschüss.
Ciao, ciao. Tschüss. Yes, yes.